Heavyweight Bass coming at you for another Heavyweight Bass live hangout. This time we got Australian Perth-based drum and bass duo Ekko and Sidetrack. Hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Hey man, good.
Good.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. What's the time? What's the time over there? What's it? It's 3 hours difference, is there? 4
4
hours difference. 4
Oh, no,
hours
three
difference.
3 hours difference.
3 hours difference. We'll get there in the end. So, let's start at the beginning. We'll get some people get to get an understanding of where you're from. So how did it all start? When did it start? What made you? Did you start out as DJs, or would you make music first?
I think I mean, I bought decks probably around 2007, 6, I think, and I was buying records before I owned turntables because my mates had turntables. Then we had decks, and then I think it was about 2008. I got a copy of Ableton off a friend, and he showed me. He was a hip hop dude, so he was explaining sampling and things like that, and it was something that always fascinated both of us. I think we were always into music because we were in bands and stuff throughout high school and stuff like that. It just ended up being a pain in the ass to organize 4 people, so it's easier to do it yourself on a computer rather than getting a room and But I suppose that's how it all started. DJing, then
Production.
getting that Ableton thing and going, oh, we can make sounds as well.
But we were always when we had our first gig in Perth, we had already been producing music for about
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months a year because we started.
Yeah, but absolutely.
Oh, it was shit music, definitely. but yeah, our first gig I think was in 2009.
8, late 2008.
We started in Europe. No, because we started working on
the music in
Europe. In 2008.
Yeah, when we were on a holiday.
This is such a brotherly thing. Look at you discussing that one. Look at that one. Arguing everything. All right. It was. Look at it. I could have sat back and just left the two of you go then. That was just such a family thing. It's like watching an episode of Family Feud there and just arguing about it all. So, okay, cool. And how long was it? How long was you producing for before you got your first release out?
I want to say 2011 on Tongue Flap Records.
Yep.
Yeah.
2011 or 2012.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We were chatting to the guys from Tongue Flap on AIM, and we sent him a bit, and he was like, "Wow, this is really cool. I really like this." And we were like, "What? Someone likes our music?" And
someone wants to put it out.
Yeah, it kind of went.
Yeah.
And then slowly, I suppose we building up that quality control over the last 4 or 5 years to get where we are now.
That's the most important thing, the quality control, isn't it? And I try to, I get so many youngsters hitting me up on the blog and everything else and asking that, and it's finding your own sound and quality control. And it doesn't matter what style of music you make. It's no difference at all. You can talk about deep house through the drum and bass and trap and all these crazy names in between that I've never even heard of before that I keep getting bombarded with. And it's the same. It's quality control. And the big difference between a well-produced record on a club sound system is massive. And yeah, I like something I try to get across to all the youngsters. So it's great that you said that as well. So that's the first releases, going on there, and then hook up with iPad. I mean, that's a big one. That's one of the big labels, top 40 hits in the UK with Futurebound and Matrix, and very successful apps. Inside Info and God, who else is on there? Loads of them, isn't there?
Scientific, Brooks Brothers,
Smooth, Six Blade,
the prototypes. It's a body of.
So how did that happen? Was you sending them demos?
We had met Brendan.
You had met.
I had met Brendan when he played a gig in Bali. We also played at just as locals, and we got introduced by Carl Shockwan, and he kind of gave us a big up and said, "Watch out for these guys." And then we probably sent Brendan a demo 2 years later.
Yeah, we finally
We took our
guts
time.
and like played some stuff and had some intermittent releases on local record label Q Recordings, who did some of Fred V and Graphics early stuff, Concepts early stuff.
And then we also did a remix for Dexel, some UK guys.
On their own imprint,
Yeah,
which is cool. So we just like had these little things, but I suppose we finally worked up the guts to send Futurebound something that we were happy with, and that we thought, you know, that quality control game again.
and that was something Carl had always said to us, like, hold on to your stuff until you're 100% with it. Because we could have sent a great idea to Brendan, and he could have said, yeah, guys, this is cool, but your production's, 2 years off or 1 year off. Come back to me then. So we thought it'd be better to hold off until, he was 90% sure that he was going to like the production of it.
Yeah, wicked.
I'll be happy with it.
Yeah. Carl's awesome, man. Shock One. He's, not only is an awesome producer, but he's very active on the blog and in our heavyweight base Facebook group. Always giving out advice to the youngsters and stuff. And I really appreciate that. So it's great. It's great to hear how much support he gave you when he started out.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit geeky then. This is what people are really interested in. What's your writing process? How do you go about with a track? Do you guys go in with a specific idea and you know what you're doing, or is it literally just throw some drums together, get a bass going, and kind of build up a loop, 8-bar loop or something like that? Or do you go in knowing, this is what we want to do?
I think sometimes one of us will come with either a sketch of a tune or an idea, and that's like absolutely shitty things, but like a vibe. Or someone's got sometimes it starts with an idea. Like we seem to come at things with a bit of like a cinematic feel. Like, oh, I want to make a song that sounds like it was made in a factory on the moon.
Very visual.
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know if you know how Goldie works, but Goldie works with a sketch pad, draws everything down, and comes from that artist perspective. Writing music is no different from than being a painter or anything else. So there's nothing wrong with that idea. It's a great way to be creative. If that's what works for you. Sorry to interrupt, but it was just interesting to hear the the perspective that you come from.
I suppose it does differ each time. Sometimes it's like, oh, I've written these like great drums, and like, oh, what kind of song would be hang on these drums? Or like, oh, I've got this really cool patch that I've made, what kind of thing? And sometimes it's just literally dive right in and grab some samples and see what works. And the amount of shit that ends up on the cutting room floor, like, that's a vibe that started, oh, I like this, and then we'll start something else, or 3 things later, and you kind of go, oh, that's a similar thing to this. Oh, it's quite organic. There's no, we're really quite disorganized in some ways.
Yeah, there's probably been one song, which was our latest thing to come out on Viper, Alone Without You, that had started with an actual chord progression, and that we wrote the chord progression, and that was kind of the first step. Usually everything else is samples, loop it up, creating
Are you guys using a lot of samples? Is there a lot of sampling still involved, or is it like a lot of sound design, making your own stuff?
Probably a mixture
of stuff. And sometimes it's like great to get inspiration from a sample and then go like, oh, we're going to recreate that better, or we're going to like, oh, it's amazing to write with samples, and then you'll take out the sample and be like, actually, we've created a better vibe, and we didn't need that sound anyway.
And are you like at that traditional drum and bass attitude of, are you using all the breaks, the old school breaks, chopping them up, taking bits out, or are you just taking individual hits, finding your own hits and building beats, building up your loop that way? I had to listen to a few of the tracks, and I couldn't hear lots of breaks going on in it, if you know what I mean. There was stuff going on in the background to feel, but it wasn't like the breaks were leading the way, if you know what I mean. Those traditional break beats.
Yeah, I don't think we've done a tune where we've like really gone hard in on the drum work, and that's actually some of the things we're working on at the moment. Are like, all right, let's go back to that, chopping up the breaks. Let's getting real groove out of your drums.
Yeah. I like what you do. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have got you on here if I didn't. But it was just one of those things of like, there's in modern drum and bass, there's kind of two schools when you listen to it still. So you've got what you guys are doing, which is still very melody driven, hooks, harmonies, the sort of stuff that can get into good vocals can get into a top 40 in the UK, etc. And then there's those the other sort of little bit more traditional, not necessarily deeper, but they're still using chopping up the breaks, and you get
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean, that feel. Not, and it's a bit more about the break and the bass, not the
I
hook on the
think
top.
I think like lately, probably over the last 2 years, we've probably relied on breaks less for energy and put them kind of further back in the mix. Like there are still breaks
Yeah.
within the mix.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Sorry. Definitely.
And I
Yeah.
think like our energy is more coming from songwriting rather than kind of putting a quite a loud break in there and saying, "Oh, that's where the energy is." I
Yeah.
think.
They're definitely sitting further in the back, further back in the mix. I listened to. I went through YouTube today and I was listening. We can actually play a track of yours in a minute so people can have a listen. But I had a listen and you can hear. I know. And it was just. It was a question I wanted to ask, and it was the sort of question I would probably ask to Future Bound and Matrix as well. Very similar, if you know what I mean, in that sense of just the breaks are not so prominent anymore. They sit further back, and they're not filling that mid-range area anymore. They're a lot more kind of filled out, and it's not the energy, as you said. Yeah, everything's dipped out, and there's like you can hardly hear the dynamics of the break. It's just there's just a character bit, maybe whether it's the hearing the rides in it or something else. You know what I mean? Very background. I mean, I like it, and the kicks are much. They're not big like a house kick, but they're much more forward in the mix,
Yeah.
which is another thing that I like coming, especially as much as I've got a drum and bass background stuff. I love, house music. So I love that. I think the kicks give the energy, and I like that vibe to the mixes.
Yeah.
I think it's something, like I said, something to look at. We'll work on some stuff, and you nailed it when you said they scoop out that mid range of the breaks because there's so much air and realness in there that often we'll be like, it's too much. We want to fill that with our own stuff,
Like melodies
and other sorts of frequencies like that. So as we look at something that maybe it's a bit more low end oriented, we can be like, let's fill up some mid-range space with some loose stuff, and we can get some airy breaks in there and really create a groove and a vibe with that stuff because we don't have the other stuff we might normally use.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I think actually with those comments, you can't. A mix down is very much like packing a box or building a house, foundations. You know what I mean? Everything's got to be done with layers, and you've got to fit everything in nice. And you can't if you're trying to fill that mid-range area, you can't have all that energy there if you're going to have these leads and the hook melodies that you've got going. It's just going to be too. Everything's going to be fighting. And it's going to just be a mess, and it's going to clash. And it doesn't matter how much kind of corrective EQ you do or any fancy compression techniques, at the end of the day, less is more when in a mix. And if you've got things that aren't, if things aren't fighting for that area, so that's really interesting, philosophy there with the way that you're building the
Totally
tunes
have to
together.
compartmentalize things. Like the analogy I've used in the past is like it's like cleaning up a garage or something. It's like you can have a pile of stuff in a room. It's the same pile of stuff, or you can grab all those things and put them in exact compartments, and it's much neater, and everything is where it sits. Yet you've still
Yeah,
got the same amount of shit in the fucking room. So like,
yeah, it's how you do it. Everyone's got a different analogy. Like I've got a mate who does it's like building a sandwich, the layers, and you don't want nothing crumbling out the side or the mayonnaise leaking. And all this, he goes into a massive one. I do it occasionally, but being a man of size, I avoid the food conversation because it makes me hungry. But all right, good. Well, listen, I'm going to play a track, one of your tracks, and we're going to play the Alone Without You, which we just spoke about. So we'll just give it a bit of a blast, and people can hear it, what we're talking about. Wow, bloody hell, that was epic. You
Thanks.
know, the vocals, it's lovely in the mix, just sitting right on top. Um, just the right amount of bottom end taken out. You know what I mean? It's just got really nice character. How did you process the vocal? Out of
Oh,
interest.
we're just actually commenting while it was playing. We're like, wow, like we really lucked out with the vocal. We recorded it over maybe 2.5 hours, not that many takes into a decent little mic. What the fuck is the mic called? Yeah. I mean, nothing, not some awesome
Just a
Shure
Sennheiser?
mic or anything. It's an SE Electronic or something. It
They're good
with,
mics, by the way, just so you know. Just to
yeah,
go, for anyone that's like going to tuning in now, watching it, or going to watch later on. One thing you need to be aware of with mics now is that mic technology has moved on so much. You know, they're using technology in microphones that in the 50s and 60s that people were using in humans, and that people are paying 5-6 grand for. One of the important things people should remember about a microphone is it's it's the person's voice that makes the difference on the microphone. You can go out and buy a $200 microphone, but with a particular singer, if that frequency suits that microphone, it's going to sound amazing. Or then you can put someone else on it and it's going to sound shit. It's the vocalist makes the mic, not the mic making the vocalist. But yeah, the technology in microphones today is if you spend $200-$600 up to that range, you're going to get a good microphone. And those SC Electronics ones are great.
I think we really lucked out. Samara really nailed the vocal, and she gave us something that was like a great dry take. Like, we, even without any effects, we knew that it would sit kind of properly where we wanted to. And then I think it was we did a little bit of Melodyne stuff, a little bit of retuning some slightly flat bits, and then it was like Waves CLA vocals mixed with some
Delays,
some multi-band stuff,
bit of reverb.
Yeah, nothing crazy, and like that's what I said. We like lucked out. This would be the first vocal we've ever recorded and processed.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
And we were just so like we kind of went into it like, oh, I think we can do this, and kind of felt our way through it, but we're pretty happy with how it turned out. With just some
you can hear it's a great take. As there's an old recording engineer saying, which is fix it in the take, just like mastering engineers say fix it in the mix. Fix it at the take. It's if it's a recording of a guitar or a vocal, go back and do it again. If you can get a good take, you don't need to add loads of EQ to it. You can just get into, a little bit of compression maybe for balancing out. And then, as you said, stick waves on there, get into your delays and reverbs.
I think as well, the one thing that I think it was Carl mentioned to us, he was like, don't be afraid, Carl and Fett both said, don't be afraid to limit it fairly hard as well. Like, because of where it's going to sit, it's going to have those peaks, but you can, with something with a bit of a slower attack, you can smooth things out a bit. And I think that's something we were like struggling with the loudness a bit, and then we took that into account.
Yeah, Carl's right. Don't be afraid of limiting vocals. You can use limiters in vocals in two ways. If you've got just for people watching and for you guys, you might if you've got a whole page of vocals, you've got lots of backing vocals, harmonies, melodies, layers, etc., all different volumes and all that kind of stuff. What you can do is that mute everything else in the track, just play the vocals, press play, let it play from beginning to end. Then stick an L1 on each of the channels, each of the vocal channels. And basically your meters should show you the peak volume of each of the vocals that they've played. So the loudest point is what you want to set the limiter at. So if there's one of the harmonies that's gone, it's peaked out at like, minus 16 dB, set the limiter to minus 16 dB, minus 5 on the, with the gain reduction, minus 16. And just the output down to about minus 5 or whatever like that. Then take 2 or 3 dB gain reduction off and go through each of them, setting the limiter the highest peak on each that the meter shows you on each of the vocals, and you'll end up with all of the vocals perfectly leveled all the way through before you start any other processing. And then
I think that getting that sound as well, we kind of said like we need to find the balance before we start fucking with EQ.
Yeah, completely.
And
You know, there's
stuff.
only so much you can do with compression, and again, automation is so much nicer as well with vocals. If you go in and automate the bits that you need to do, it's so much nicer than compression. But yeah, limiting. If I'm mixing a record and I've got loads of vocals, I will even everything out at the beginning with a limiter, as I said, using that trick. The idea is that you look at each of the vocals and you set it at the peak, and there you go. And then the other thing I'll do is I use a limiter at the end of the chain as well. So the first thing I'll always do is that I will compress vocals first of all. EQ after compression. So I'll do cutting. So I'll cut any low end and high end out, and then EQ after the compression, because controlling the transients. And all I'm taking off maximum -6 dB gain reduction. That's it. Anything like more than that, and then automate it. But it's literally I just want to catch peaks. I'll do all my processing, then stick a limiter at the end as well. And I'll use something like Waves R compressor. And there's a Dave Pasendo setting in there, which is called -6 dB Hip Hop Slam. Stick that on the end, man. I've gone through loads of different settings, and that fucking thing works every time. Pull it down and reset it all, and it's awesome. And it just evens everything out. And it's so I might have even 2 limiters running on it, and I might even stick in Sonic's inflator on it as well. Just you want vocals to punch through, but you want it even and balanced. And that vocal sits beautiful in the mix. It's just really nice on top. Works really well with all the harmonies. So, did you struggle to get? I mean, another processing you've done, but did you have to do a lot of work to get all the harmonies sitting there to keep that vocal sitting on top?
Not really.
Like it was really surprisingly easy.
I think what we did is notched some stuff out for the vocal when it comes back in of the bass, and that was just like an automated EQ, maybe a little bit of automation in the gain in that area. Probably pulled a little bit of the bottom end out of the vocal when it was playing in the song, but like let that bottom end breathe more in the intros.
Yeah.
Because the space is taken up with other sounds during the song.
You haven't cut all that mid-range weight out of it, which is what I like. Too many people, when they get carried away, cut too much out. That's the body of the vocal, that's what's going to cut through.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well we probably pulled a little bit of that 1 to 2K out of the bass, because the bass is quite crunchy in that area, and then pulled that out for when the vocal was there, and then brought it back in. You notice as well in that first 8 bars of the B section, there is no choppy mids. I think that was an arrangement choice. We were like, one, we want to create some dynamics to go down and then come back to, but as well,
the vocal is the king of that part.
We didn't
need that kind of crunchy 800 to 1K bass coming through then.
As someone who masters records for a living, that was something else that I noticed with the mix, that there was actually some dynamics left in it, but it was still punchy. And that's mix. That's got nothing to do with mastering. That's what you've done in the mix. It's like, most people now, they just want -2 RMS, make me as loud as, Skrillex or TB and Calix, you know what I mean? Let's make me loud. And those guys, the stuff sounds great and they make it like that, but, there's no dynamics to any of it. And there's no dynamics to a lot of the drum and bass out there at all. Everything's loud.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I noticed, and that's why I picked that track, was there's movement. But it's still loud. You're probably a little bit. It's probably not as pushed as loud as those guys. There's still a little bit there that you can go louder. But there is the dynamics, and I noticed the mixing of what you've done. There's focusing of the vocal come up in level in certain points. You know what I mean, and not trying to be the same level all the way through. And tell me, where is that something you've just consciously done, or is that something you were aiming for, or is that just the way the track came out? It's just interesting because a lot of people don't mix like that anymore. Everybody's just trying to go for loud, not trying to have any movement in the track whatsoever.
We're pretty aware of dynamics, and we try not to work into a limiter at the start as well, so we're very aware of where things are. So we're still trying to work at -3 peak headroom, and then we look at our RMS. Always monitoring our RMS, but trying to get this balance that's still got that dynamics. Plus, I think we try and work at quiet volumes as well.
Yeah, rather than just thinking Well, I tend to get caught up probably because my ears aren't as good. My ears are probably a bit more damaged than Jeff's. I tend to work at a higher volume, but whenever he's in there, he always kind of turns down, and we've started like listening to the whole track at like what?
I wouldn't know what the
40
dB is out here, but
Yeah.
like on the interface, it's like minus 45. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
very-
Just hearing, you're trying to listen to what everything else is going on. And what monitors are you using in there? Let's talk a bit about your setup, because you're working from home.
Yeah. Actually, the back of our parents' house, which used to be the band room, but
Okay,
it's,
so you've got a live band background.
Yeah.
yeah, we used to jam a drum kit and some bass guitar and some guitars and stuff in here. It was good.
All right,
but
so
now-
what monitor are you using?
It's the we got the Adams A8Xs.
Okay, big fan of Adams. I like the rhythm tweeter.
Yeah, we actually something we've just upgraded recently is we upgraded to an RME interface.
Okay,
Yeah. So and that coming from I think we had like a Roland thing that was like $600. This one's a lot better, and now we're here. Like the Adams sounded good on the Roland, but now they just sound amazing. We're getting so much more definition in that top end. We had a friend come in the other day. We're helping him mix down one of his tunes, and he was like, "What? I couldn't even hear this stuff in my room.
Yeah.
Like what?"
Yeah, it's what a quality DA does for you. Yeah, I mean, but both sections of the RME is nice. I mean, it's not super high end, but it's that nice. I mean, that would clip really nice as well if you wanted to try that to bring some volume up. You know about clipping AD for your final volume instead of using a limiter.
Yeah,
Signal. But the only thing is you need a piece of hardware to drive this to the RME, so like a compressor or something just for the gain. But the RME clips quite nice, so you could get most of your RMS levels from clipping instead of using limiters. So you'll end up with something, especially with because you like transparent, you'll end up with something much nicer, and you'll keep more of that movement. Just something to think about with that RME. And what DAW are you using?
Ableton 9.
Another Ableton. And did you go to the new update? 9.5 yet? 9.5?
No, not yet, because Jeff read that
on the heavyweight bass forum, actually, someone's talking about the waveforms. They're like, and I was like,
oh, yeah, that's Nur. But Nur also made a comment that you can go inside and have you read his guide to tweaking the settings inside? It's a document setting, and so you can revert back to the old wave file thing if you want. I'll tell him to send you a message, because you need to go on it. You need to swap to it because of the filters. You've basically, the Cytomic, the drop. You've got that now for free. That thing is the best filter plugin you're ever going to use, and you've got that included with plus the glue that you've got. The same guy designed them and designed the glue and the drop. But the drop is probably one of the best filter plugins you're ever going to have. So the music you make is going to be amazing.
I think as well. Like, I recently updated to El Capitan on my laptop, and then
listen to the noise I make. Don't do it.
And so I was like, didn't think about it. I'll update, and so now any update that comes along, I'm like, I'm gonna wait a little bit because I got burnt. And I'm not that much of a tech.
That was a horror update. I mean, we've got a few people that in the group that are just level 9,000 geeks, and they just love to try it out, and they'll put it on a laptop that's not their work computer. And Chris Allen's an amazing mix engineer based in the UK, who's one of the admins of the group. He kind of like people like Sasha and Uncle and all these pop music and stuff. He's a different world to where we work in basically, and he put it on his Ableton laptop for at home, and shit just disappeared, just vanished. And it was he panicked for like a week, and then he said the last El Capitan update kind of fixed a lot of it, but there's still lots of issues. There's still lots of audio issues and stuff. It's crazy. I think a lot of it's got to do with the DAW companies, really. I mean, I don't know if it can be Ableton's fault. I don't know if it can be Apple's fault, because it seems to be issues with DAW problems. I don't know. Who knows?
It's like one guy's maybe updating too quickly, and to react. Apple tend to like push something out and then like we'll fix this in post.
Yeah.
As
course
people
they do.
report problems, we'll fix this rather than like I don't know, getting a bit straighter from the get go. But yeah, definitely
Well,
9.5.
Apple's problem is that they've just stopped supporting the multimedia market. They've just moved away. There's no longer any support for the music or graphic designers. You can see that by their computer design dropping FireWire from and making people buy the most expensive MacBook Pro and getting and if you look in the old days, all the computers had FireWire. All of them had Thunderbolt. You know what I mean? It's the support, and you could be a graphic designer or a bedroom producer and buy the cheapest laptop. Now they're trying to make you buy a $4,000 laptop, and with an operating system that's just got holes all the way through it, and they've got rid of all their, pro apps. Logic's the only one left, isn't it? They got rid of all their graphic design ones. Yeah, I've been looking at Windows for such a long time, especially since I swapped.
Windows guys. This is the studio is a Lenovo computer on Windows.
Oh, so you're running off PC here?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you gone to to Windows 10 on it yet, or are you still?
No. Got Windows 7.
10 is really supposed to be really, really good. It's supposed to be really good for music apps and everything else. I've been I swapped to Studio One this year from Pro Tools and Logic, and I won't be going back to any other program. It's amazing for mixing. It's it's got everything that I want for my mixing and mastering. But I was so looking at going to Windows 10, but I ended up building a Hackintosh instead. Saving myself loads of money and staying on there. And Yosemite, it's been all right. I've had no problems, but El Capitan. Anyway,
if you find it stable, just I think.
Well, we always used to. We never used to update in the old days. Now I don't know. They kind of force you to, don't they? The software developers do a new update and they make you. It's going to work better if you go to the latest OS, and then everything fucking fails. And it falls on its face.
This computer, the studio computer, is offline. We've always run it like that. If we want to update something, we have to do either an offline installer, which is a pain in the ass.
Really? Now that's, but you know what? On a Windows PC, you're keeping it safe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's we'll plug it in. If we if the 9.5 update, when we go and get it, we'll literally grab a big long cable,
20-meter cable,
run it to the router, plug it in, do the install, do an update, unplug it, and take it back. And
for those that are watching now, and for those that will watch this back later on, that is if you want to keep your work system clean and working correctly and safely, that's what you need to do. Keep it offline. It's the only way to do it. You don't have to worry about antivirus stuff. Then you don't have to worry about firewalls. Yeah, that's man. That was it. I was gonna do that, and then I just got lazy. It's just okay. I'll just browse Facebook and at work and in the studio,
That's how you block creativity.
It is. It is. So all right. So you're on Ableton using the Adams, and another thing I just wanted to point out for people that are watching as well. Just look at the room that the guys are working in. Just shows you what you can do once you know your equipment, because I'm not knocking it because your tunes come out sounding great, and it's a good incentive for people that are starting out. That shows you what can be done as a bedroom producer, because you want
us to lift up the computer so you can have a little bit of look around.
Yeah, come on, show us the room.
All right, so we've got that corner. That's got a big fuck off bookshelf in it. As we sweep back around here, you can see the desk. And you got some stuff in the corner, records, a little Korg. We got a turntable set up so we can sample under those papers. Then we just go back around, some shit in the corners there, curtains, mattresses,
And a couch.
and a couch,
And an organ.
and an
A
organ.
wooden organ.
Wow. Look, it just shows you what can be done as a bedroom producer once you know what you're doing.
And
Or
I think-
it's fine. It's knowing your gear, isn't it? I think it's at the end of the day. I like working in nice studios, and I like expensive gear and everything else. But in my heart, I know, and not with the mixing and the mastering, I don't think. But I think writing tunes in my heart of heart, I know I could sit at home and do it on my laptop with headphones.
Yeah.
But I just don't like to admit it. I think that's the problem. I just like those flashing lights and just wasting my daughter's college fund on hardware.
It's also about creating a room that you feel comfortable in. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we've changed up the lighting a bit. We don't open the curtains so the sun doesn't come in. We've kind of created a space that we'd like to be in. And before we were kind of in this fluorescent lighting, and you'd feel the nighttime, the daytime, and like there was shit on the floor, and it wasn't a space you wanted to spend 16 hours.
All right.
And since we've made it that,
Yeah.
we actually work much better.
And also filling the room up with stuff. Like, I think because this room is basically square, and that's like, you know, oh, you shouldn't have a square room and all this stuff. And we were like, okay, slowly but surely we'll fill it with some things.
Fill it with shit.
Yeah,
Lots of wood, and
we got some desks, we got some shapes that were, you know, creating some irregularities. And then slowly, you know, we know that if you sit at the back of the room, it's just the basiest place in the ever. But in the sweet spot, it's pretty good. And, you know, using your spectrum analyzers and knowing your room, you can get a decent sound.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me I'm going to ask you a bit of a geeky one then. What's your current favorite EQ plugin?
Fab Filter.
Yeah, Fab Filter 2.
2.
Yeah. What do you like about it? How do you use it? Is that just basically your go-to EQ? Is it, you know, is that what you use as your kind of channel strip EQ, or is there something specific that you like about it?
We kind of use it. It gets used for a bit of everything.
Yeah,
like it's good for the surgical stuff. With all of its like band soloing stuff. Mid-side stuff is just so clean on it. The
spectrum inside it is also quite good.
Do you guys use much mid-side processing?
Lately
when we learnt about it, probably about 18 months ago.
Yeah,
we keep learning things in stages, and that's I think that's the best way to learn. Like, you know, if someone's starting out and then you tell them multi-band processing, it's going to blow their mind. So you've got to learn in steps. And mid-side would have been one of the most helpful things we've learnt to create space. Like, you know, fuck the sides off that thing. Create, you know, this honed mix that has a space. Because one of the things that you get from, you know, it's not just I like the sound of that. It's like I like the way those sounds sit. But people might not be more as aware of that kind of thing. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I use it every day. It's a godsend in what I do, and you know, I love being able to focus in on the mid section, which is, for people who don't know what mid side is, it's the mono and the stereo side of the material that you're listening to. It's something that you can overdo, and you can absolutely fucking murder a track with it if you do it wrong. But subtlety, you know, subtle processing in mid side. Something that I like to do would be, say, if it's on the master output, I'll cut everything below 32, but then I'll on the sides, I'll cut everything on the sides from 100, so it gets rid of all that low end in the stereo parts and just leaves the mono parts to punch through. And that's important for sound systems. People forget club sound systems are in mono. So mono compatibility is the most important thing.
To pull some like sometimes you're working with something and you're like, it's just finding a little bit of like clarity here, and then you pull the sides out of something, you know, even up to 500 if you don't need it. And with Fab Filter as well, you can solo what's above and below your band. So
it is a great one. Yeah, it's
like, I'm cutting out this noise that is so not vital to the sound, but it's just fucking the other sounds.
Yeah.
Or the other thing that's really nice is just opening up the sides on something. You know, just if you don't, you can just go in and add half a dB on the main output on the sides and just lift those hats a little bit. You don't have to go in on the mix. You don't have to raise any levels or do anything. You can do it with mid side. But again, as I said, you've got to be really careful with it. So anyone that doesn't know about that's watching that doesn't know about mid side, I'd, you know, do some Google, do some search, or send me a question about it in the group, or post about it in the heavyweight based group, and I'm sure plenty of us will answer. All right.
I would say so as well. Check your mix in mono from the get go, because the tune we just listened to, we didn't do that with, and really close to the end of the whole process, we played it in mono and it fell apart.
Yes.
So we had to do some, you know, literally like 3 days before the deadline, we had to go in and re-engineer everything and watch our stereo, like how much stuff we had delayed, how much stuff we'd cut the mids out of, and had to save it. So
All
it's
right.
good
So,
to
yep.
constantly check the mono.
Yeah, it's a very important point. It's something that I keep stressing to people. So for people that don't understand how it works, is club systems are in mono. Simple as that. Yeah. There are maybe some club systems might be if you're in a club, no one's going to be like standing perfectly centered the whole time. They're going to be in front of the left speaker. They're going to be the right. It's going to be all around the room. So it's club systems are mono. And the other thing they do is they probably filter off everything below. Some club systems filter everything below 80 hertz as well. They get rid of all that low end. So the energy of a tune comes from that mid-range kind of that kind of high end of the bass, and also mono compatibility. So if a tune has loads of stereo image and you mono it off, when you fold the sounds back into mono, you have phase problems if it's not lined up properly. So sounds can cancel each other out. Also, stereo images they don't fold over right, so they cancel each other out as well. So listening to your mix in mono is so important to make sure that what you're doing in stereo translates into mono. Try not to use stereo widening plugins on pads. Instead, use traditional pans. So if you've got a pad, instead of using a stereo pad, mono it off, copy it down onto the second track, pan one left, pan one right. So when it gets mono, they fold into one. Because people nowadays are using too many stereo widener plugins and making things sound super wide, and it goes all left and right, and you get weird movement going on. When the mono and the track folds in, it's like it's people probably. I'll slip myself quickly, but this is what I mean. I'm sort of when it folds over with the tracks. If the stereo image is wrong, that messes up. So I'm really glad you brought that up because we spoke about it with Nick Taylor a few weeks ago when I did a live podcast as well. I spend 60% of my time in mono, even with mastering as well. I'll also go in and correct phase on every single track. It doesn't matter if you don't think it's there. Most of the times it will need it. I use Vox Engo. It's PH something. I'll just Google it quickly so people can. PHA 979. A real fucking weird name for a plugin, if you ask me. But it's a phase plugin, so you can go in and put the plugin on your part. So the idea is that you've got to set the phase off of the kick. So leave the kick, don't change the phase of the kick, and then you'll go in, have the kick drum going, and then solo each of the other parts with this, and then just go in and adjust the settings. And you've got left and right phase settings, and you just keep adjusting it. And what you'll find is that once you get that phase right, the clarity of the mix opens up as well, and you'll be doing less EQ and so much less. That plugin is like a godsend. You go through, make sure that the bass is all the different bass channels, but start using pans left and right. Sorry to waffle on and anyway, but it was just it's something you just can't emphasize enough. Traditional panning instead of using stereo widener plugins is so much better. Just left and right.
Wideners as well tend to trick you because they sound so exciting, like...
Exactly right, and that's what they are doing. They are tricking you. It's psychoacoustic tricks. It's not really there. Whereas panning left and right and center, traditional methods, it's really there. It's not doing no crazy filtering or fancy stuff to trick your ears. It's actually there. And if you want to appreciate how good records can sound in mono, is just go and listen to the Beatles. All the Beatles albums are not stereo, the original recordings, or the Kinks, or anything like that. They were made in mono. Go and listen to Sgt. Pepper in mono, and listen to how fucking good an album can sound. It sounds better than the stereo version that was done afterwards, because once the invention of stereo was done.
But that's anyway. It. All those old ones as well. Like some of them, they get because stereo was so new, they go so crazy with it. Like, you know what? We're gonna put that completely over here, and it's like that's how they made it. And if you listen to that on a speaker system that's wide enough, like it's a house system or something in a house where the speakers are here and one there, you're literally your drums coming out here and something's coming out there, and you're like, this just sounds disjointed. But it was all the fun at the time.
I mean, it's the generation that we live in as well. It's like people are mixing for earbuds and for phones and iTunes, and it sounds great when you're sitting at home or you're fucking listening to YouTube and it's stereo and all this. But when you get to a club, it sounds like shit. Where's the bass gone? Where's all that lovely pad that you've got there? It's disappeared because it's messed up because you've used the stereo widener on it and it hasn't done it. Instead of having two parts and panning them left and right. So that's a great tip. That's probably like, it's the third time now actually because it was mentioned the last time. So it's like a mantra that I should on about. It's like probably that I sit there and my wife, I say it in my sleep and she slaps me. So anyway, what about compressor? Favorite software compressor?
Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, we've recently found some ones included with Complete. The
VC.
Bus compressor.
yeah,
Oh,
and the V160 and the 70.
oh,
So they're all like based on the analog gear, and they're made with in collab with
soft tube.
Soft Tube. Yeah, and they're really good. And
they're
like
fucking good. All the Native Instrument stuff is amazing.
yeah, we've been learning a lot more about getting some groove and using compression. Previously, we probably thought like, oh, it's to get it louder, it's to do this, it's to change the dynamics. But you start to realize that you can get so much shaping of the sound and changing of the sound and like actual dynamics, not just squashing, with different combinations of releases, attacks, and different compressors as well do different things. And we're definitely taking a lot more interest as plugins come out, and you're like, ooh, I'm interested to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, sticking one compressor on, slamming fucking 10 dB on a kick drum, that's not how you compress. That's why house music, well, EDM sounds so crap right now, because everybody's slamming the life out of it. It's all about capturing peaks, lifting up dynamics. Maybe you've got, and another thing I would say is all the magic is done on the bus. Nothing's really done on individual channels. It's the real magic is done on parallel compression and on the bus. It's grouping your stuff together. It's like using a little bit of bus compression, lifting that snare up in the group without lifting volume up, just lifting the attack up, or hats, and it's all done on the attack and release. I mean, it's really refreshing to hear that from a young duo. Because I spend so much time trying to preach this stuff. So it's just understanding the compression, what it does, the sounds.
And like gel to the sounds as well, with like what you're saying with the bus compression and stuff, is like you've got a few sounds coming into your bus, and then when you choose to do your bus compression, you gel those sounds together, and whether like you set a bit of a slower attack, which means you get some of your transients and it smushes some things, you can shape this sound, and that's so much, you can get so much interest and cohesion out of your sounds rather than just like, oh, we'll just leave it and layer them up.
Compression in dance music should be about glue. There's no need to be compressing anything hard. Sample packs and soft synths and everything else sounds so good that their transients, their punch and everything else is there. What you're after in the track is some cohesion, and it's glue. That's what you're after. And as I said, the other all the magic happens on the bus, whether it's bus compression or parallel. I really do all my processing on parallel compression nowadays. So
the great thing about ones, they've got wet and dry, which is so easy to parallel stuff on.
Yeah, so the nice one would be something like so you can use a distressor clone, so like a UAD distressor clone, or the Sly FX, is it Sly FX, whatever, the Kush guys, so they got deflector, so you can drive that a little bit harder, or Dynamite People, the soft tube one, so you can slam that fucker with about fucking 15 dB gain reduction, have it distorting. And then you can EQ a bit of bottom up, and then bring that underneath on the parallel. Adds a whole lot of sparkle and life to your drums that wasn't there before. And it's not about making things louder. You know what I mean? Loudness potential starts with the mix. It's how you balance everything and how everything is fitted together, as we spoke earlier on, how things are EQ'd, not how hard you use your sausage fashioner, or like how much carnage fucking sausage fattener templates or whatever are out there. And choose a plugin and learn it. That's what I say. You don't need to go out and really spend loads of money on all these plugins. You can do it all inside Ableton's with Ableton's own plugins if you want to do that. Learn them. So yeah, that's really refreshing actually. It's something that I don't hear from guys about your age. It's all about slamming them. So we've done compression, we've done EQ. Favorite reverb?
We tend to use the who makes it?
Audio Damage.
Audio Damage EOS.
EOS. All right, good. Audio Damage. Yeah, that's a crazy reverb.
Yeah,
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, the two plates on it do different stuff. Then you've got the massive hall one, and I think just the interface and the sound that comes out of it is really good. And like as well, I think we've been aware again recently of like getting a good sound with a darker reverb. Like some people look at a filter. I mean, I used to look at the filter thing and be like, what the fuck is that? Who cares? I just want it to reverb.
Just on the Ableton reverb.
Yeah, I just want it to reverb. But like being aware of what that reverb sounds like changes your sound. And it also, if you've got too many reverbs all like getting this like top end like hiss to everything, everything starts to mess up in that area. But also you convince yourself that you've got too much top end, so you turn up your bass.
Yeah.
And then you throw your mix, and then you have to turn up your thing. But really, you just have to darken some of your reverbs to get more of a space in this area, rather than just adding to the toppy stuff that you've got there anyway.
Do you use a lot of plates, sort of for the EOS plates, or are you sort of halls? I mean, I know you you mentioned the hall setting and the plate in there, but do you just tend to use one or two reverbs and everything goes through? So plate, just stick all your drums through the plates, hall on the pads, that kind of vibe to keep the continuity, or do you kind of mix and match all the way through?
I think we mix and match.
Yeah,
quite a bit. Like we don't even recently started using sends for reverb a bit more. Before we were just kind of putting a bit of reverb on tracks or
inserts. Okay, yeah, everything. Do on the sends, you just have so much more control over it.
Yeah.
Then you can go in and EQ the reverb, or you can compress the reverb.
Exactly. And like one thing as well, the reverbs that come with complete
the RC
ones or whatever.
Yeah, they're Lexicon clones. They're fucking awesome, dude. You can't go wrong with that Native Instruments stuff.
Yeah, gone crazy on them yet, but they've got definitely some great space. And I think, again, it comes back to that mixing down thing, like to get the balance of things loudness-wise, then EQ-wise, then create this sense of space, like you're in the song, is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It is about creating that space. All right. Well, last 5 minutes. If you could share 2 bits of advice for people starting out, what would it be?
Write heaps of music and don't really think about where it's going too much. Like a lot of people that I tend to talk to have just started writing music, kind of work on one song for 5 months and think it's their opus, and they want to send that to like RAM, or they want to send it to a big label, where really what they should be doing is just writing, one song every week, or try to write a song every day, and just lots of ideas to progress. Because every song you kind of get through, you're going to learn something else. So you want to write as much music as possible, and don't think about the outcome, and don't think about being this song's going to get me a fucking headline slot in this club, and I'm going to get all the girls and that type of thing. Just be motivated by the music and make lots of it.
Yeah,
that's a good bit of advice.
My advice would probably be, like, along with that, I suppose, would be to like find some people whose feedback you really value.
Yeah.
And ask them for feedback, and be prepared to get proper feedback and criticism, rather than just a pat on the back and like, yeah, this is cool, man. Or like, all your friends on Facebook, oh, they really like my song, but no one's actually, listening to it, or they're listening to it and just going, yay. Find a group of people, 4 or 5 people, 3 or 4 people whose opinions you value, and who are going to give you proper comments that are going to make you a better producer and a better engineer, rather than just people that are going to, make you feel good.
Yeah, and be prepared to take that negative feedback and actually take it on, rather than going, oh, well, fuck you, you still love my music, I like my music fucking sick. Like, because people tend to do that and their ego gets a bit bruised, and, if you can't take critical criticism,
No, exactly right. We have a bit of a slogan in the heavyweight bass group. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And it's just and that kind of goes on with the theme of what you just said. And I think that bit of advice was great. All right, look, we've been chatting for an hour. It was an absolute fucking pleasure talking to you guys. I wish you all the luck and success. I love what you're doing musically. I love the label that you're working on. I love seeing Aussie talent doing well, and I love seeing Aussie talent doing it in a music that just it really isn't Australian. Drum and bass is just such a you live in Perth, but it's what I'm talking about. It's not a music here, even though the Australians got a good heritage in it, and I love seeing the Aussies doing well in it and that list. So I'll keep an eye out. Let's maybe do this again when later in the year, next year, once you've got some more music out and something, have a little bit more of a chat. To everyone watching and everyone that's watching this will watch this later on. It'll be up on YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
All right, speak to you soon.